The sharp crack of a shot shattered the still air inside the elite shooters club. A moment of silence hung. Then came the applause, crisp and approving, like a chorus of money clapping for itself. Men in custom gear and designer ear protection grinned and nodded, their watches gleaming as much as their pride. Blake Radcliffe, the man behind the shot, lowered his custom-engraved Remington with the swagger of a man who'd never lost anything in his life. Another perfect bullseye. This was his world, a sanctuary of wealth, precision, and exclusivity. Here, skill and arrogance walked hand in hand, untouchable by the ordinary. But if you've ever been dismissed, overlooked, or made to feel like you didn't belong, stick around. What happened next shattered every rule in this self-made kingdom. At the front of the room, a woman hesitated near the entrance. Her name was Emma Miller. She clutched a worn leather purse with both hands, like a lifeline. Her clothes, plain jeans and a faded blue cardigan, whisper of discount racks and quiet resilience. She didn't belong in this cathedral of polished steel and family fortunes, not by their standards. Behind the reception desk, a young woman with perfect hair and a voice honed in politeness barely glanced up before returning to her screen. Emma cleared her throat gently. "Hi, I'd like to register for the open practice today." The receptionist glanced again, eyes scanning Emma from frayed sneakers to the loose ponytail that framed her tired face. "Members only," she said with a saccharine smile that barely disguised the contempt underneath. Emma, unfazed, reached into her bag and pulled out a creased envelope. "I have a day pass." It was a gift. Across the room, Blake caught sight of the newcomer and raised an amused brow. He adjusted his grip on his gun, stepped forward, and grinned like a fox spotting a hen. Well, looks like someone wandered in from a Walmart parking lot." He called out, loud enough to draw laughter from his entourage. Emma didn't look up. She moved toward the far end of the basic range, eyes fixed ahead, quietly navigating the sea of eyes judging her every step. Rebecca Johnson, the club's manager, noticed the scene unfolding. A former competitive shooter herself. She frowned at Blake's remark, but said nothing. She'd seen what happened to people who challenged men like him in public. Emma reached her lane, gently set her purse down, and unwrapped a cloth bundle. Inside lay a modest Glock 19, not custom, not flashy, just clean and reliable. As she checked the chamber, Blake and his friends began drifting closer, circling like sharks drawn to blood in the water. $10, says she can't even hit the paper, one of them joked. Blake smirked. "Make it 10,000. I bet she's never even held a gun before." He sauntered over, his steps slow and deliberate. "Ma'am," he said with exaggerated politeness, "you sure you're in the right place? We don't offer knitting classes here." Emma finally looked up, her hazel eyes locking onto his with a calmness that caught him off guard. "I'm just here to practice," she said softly. Blake blinked. Then the smirk returned, sharper now. "Tell you what, 10 grand says you can't hit a bullseye from 50 yards. If by some miracle you do, I pay. If you miss, you leave and don't come back." Emma paused. Her hand dropped to her left ring finger and turned the simple gold band there. It was a small, unconscious motion, but it meant everything. "I don't have that kind of money," she replied. Blake leaned in slightly, as if closing the trap. "Then it's no risk to you. Just a little fun. Come on, deal?" Rebecca stepped closer, her voice firm. "Mr. Radcliffe, maybe we should just let her practice." He cut her off with a wave. "Relax, Rebecca. It's just a friendly wager." Emma's hand stopped twisting the ring. Her eyes lifted to the target, and she nodded once. "All right." Blake's grin widened. "Ladies and gentlemen, looks like we got ourselves a show." No one noticed a shift in Emma's stance as she picked up the Glock. Her spine straightened, feet adjusted with precision, and her breathing slowed to a near-meditative rhythm. The air around her seemed to still, because no one here knew what that gold ring truly meant. 3 years earlier, Emma had stood at Arlington National Cemetery, the folded American flag in her arms heavier than grief should ever be. Master Chief Nathan Miller, her husband, had been lowered into the ground with military honors. They said it was a helicopter crash. She knew better. There were truths in the shadows she would never be cleared to know. They had met in Vermont. her a quiet accountant, him a visiting SEAL checking in on a wounded teammate. He walked into her life like a storm, calm and dangerous all at once. Within 6 months, they were married. He left often, came home scarred, haunted, but always to her. "I wish I could tell you everything," Nathan would whisper, brushing his fingers against her cheek. "But you're the reason I keep coming back." It was during one of his rare stays home, nursing a knee injury, that he took her to a range. "If I'm going to be gone so much," he said gently, correcting her stance, "I need to know you'll be okay." What started as protection became passion. Emma had a gift: steady hands, sharp eyes, and a quiet calm that rivaled the best. Nathan taught her everything: stance, breathing, sight alignment, trigger control. "This isn't about rage," he told her. "It's about control. Master yourself, master the shot." In time, even Nathan's SEAL brothers took notice. "Boss won't shut up about you," one of them laughed. "Says you shoot better than half his team." The last time they practiced together was 2 days before that final mission. He held her close that afternoon, more serious than usual. "Promise me," he said softly. "Promise you'll keep practicing, even when I'm not here." She had nodded, not realizing what he meant. After his death, she couldn't bring herself to return to the range. His gun stayed locked away. She moved to Boston, changed everything, until last week when a package arrived. A day passed to the Elite Shooters Club, and a handwritten note from Michael Reeves. 3 years is long enough. Nathan would want you to keep your promise. Come back to the living. And now, here she was, at the far end of a room that didn't want her, surrounded by people who doubted her. The Glock rose steadily in her hands. Her body remembered. The stillness returned. Only 3 things existed now: her, the weapon, and the target. Emma inhaled, held, exhaled halfway. Then she squeezed the trigger. "That's impossible," Blake snapped, standing abruptly. "No one shoots like that without training. Keep digging. Friends, family, schools, find me something." "Yes, sir," the investigator replied before the line went dead. Jessica watched him, her brow furrowed. "Blake, what if she's not some random accountant?" He turned toward the window, jaw clenched. The skyline blurred in the glass as his mind raced. "Then I need to know who she is before next Saturday." Across town, Emma sat in her modest apartment, the soft hum of the dishwasher breaking the stillness. She cradled a warm mug of tea, hands steady now that the adrenaline had long worn off. On the counter beside her sat a worn photo of Nathan, uniformed and smiling, his memory a constant compass. She had never wanted this kind of attention. Her life in Boston was deliberately quiet, low profile by design. But Blake Radcliffe had pushed her into the light, and Emma Miller didn't back down from bullies. A soft knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find Rebecca Johnson standing there, a bottle of wine in one hand and a look of curiosity in the other. "I figured after a day like that, you could use a drink," Rebecca said with a half smile. Emma hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in." Meanwhile, back at the club, Blake's team was combing through surveillance footage. One of his junior staffers paused the video. Emma's stance, her breathing, her trigger discipline. "This isn't amateur," he muttered, hitting rewind. "This is trained." Another staffer handed Blake a still frame. "Look at her grip. That's military. You don't learn that watching YouTube." Blake slammed his hand on the desk. "Then why is there no record?" The staffer swallowed. "Maybe because someone wiped it. At Emma's apartment. The wine bottle was half empty, and the barriers between the women had lowered." Rebecca studied Emma with open curiosity. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. Emma nodded, watching the glass in her hand. "You don't shoot like someone who just practiced with her husband on weekends. That form, that focus, it's something else." Emma looked up slowly. "Nathan was Army, Special Forces. Taught me everything he knew. After he died, I stopped shooting until recently." Rebecca exhaled. "So this isn't about Blake. It's about him." Emma smiled faintly. "It's about keeping a promise. Nathan always said, never let anyone talk you out of your own strength." Rebecca leaned back, clearly impressed. "Well, You just declared war on one of the most powerful men in Boston, and he doesn't like losing. I'm not here to win games, Emma replied. I'm here to end them. By Monday morning, whispers about Emma had gone from curiosity to obsession. The video of her perfect shot hit over 200,000 views. Gun forums buzzed. Speculation ran rampant. Blake's team finally got a hit. An old yearbook photo from a Virginia high school. Emma Miller, top of her ROTC class. That's something, the investigator muttered, forwarding the info. But it still wasn't enough for Blake. He wanted dirt, weakness, leverage. Keep looking, he barked. Check for sealed records. Military ties. If she so much as dated someone in uniform, I want to know. At the same time, Emma returned to the range. This time, she wasn't alone. An older man waited at lane 3, broad-shouldered with a weathered face. He turned when he saw her. Took you long enough, he said. Emma smiled. Didn't think you'd actually come, Captain Morales. Her former instructor nodded approvingly. Saw the footage. Didn't expect to see you in the headlines, Miller. I didn't expect to be there. He looked at her, sharp eyes softening. I heard about Nathan. He was a good man. Better shot than I ever was. Emma swallowed the emotion. He would have laughed at all this. Then told me to win. Morales handed her a box of rounds. Then let's make sure you do. As the week wore on, both sides prepared. Emma trained in secret under Morales' watchful eye, pushing herself harder each day, shooting from awkward positions, wind simulations, rapid-fire drills. Blake, meanwhile, was orchestrating something more devious. He called in favors, arranged for specific random firearms to be used. He even contacted an old rival of Morales, who owed him a debt. Make sure she's using an uncalibrated model, Blake said quietly. Anything to throw her off. The man hesitated. That's dangerous. Blake's eyes narrowed. So is losing to a nobody. Saturday arrived. The Boston Elite Shooting Club was transformed into an unofficial battleground. Spectators filled every seat. Camera crews hovered. The smell of gun oil and polished ego hung in the air. Emma walked in wearing simple jeans, her hair tied back, calm as ever. Blake, in designer tactical gear, greeted the crowd with the air of a man certain of victory. 10 stations, 10 shots, each one more difficult than the last. As the rules were read aloud, Blake leaned in with a smile. Still time to back out, he whispered. Emma looked him in the eye. You should have left me alone. Live audience, including media coverage, local news, and a few national outlets have already confirmed attendance. Emma exhaled, slowly gripping the phone tighter. Any particular reason for the sudden publicity? Rebecca hesitated, before replying honestly. I think Blake wants to humiliate you publicly. He's banking on pressure. Shaking your focus, Emma's voice didn't waver. Let them come to more people watching, the harder it'll be for him to rewrite the outcome. Thank you for the update, Miss Johnson. After hanging up, Emma sat in silence for a long moment, then returned to the table where Nathan's logbook still lay open. She traced his handwriting with her fingers, drawing strength from each line. He had written. She could almost hear his voice, steady, calm, reassuring, reminding her that pressure revealed character, not just skill. When Saturday arrived, the range was transformed to private venue, now outfitted with camera crews, spectator seating, even a velvet rope section for VIP guests. Emma arrived early. Dressed plainly as always, hair pulled back, no makeup, no flash, just focus. She unpacked her gear, quietly ignoring the photographers angling for a dramatic shot. Blake arrived an hour later, flanked by handlers, reporters, and Jessica. In tow, his demeanor was confident, but beneath it Emma detected tension. He waved at the camera's pose of fans, but his eyes kept flicking toward her like a man trying to size up a shadow as the crowd filled in. Michael Reeves appeared, slipping through the back gate with 2 older men and a woman, all with the unmistakable bearing of veterans. They took seats near the front, offering Emma nods of quiet support. The announcer stepped up, welcoming the crowd. Cameras clicked as the rules were reviewed. 10 stations, 10 different firearms, each representing a distinct skill set: accuracy, speed, transition, control. Every station designed to test a shooter's full range of ability. A coin toss would decide the shooting order. Blake called heads. It landed tails. Emma would shoot. First, she stepped up to the first station, a vintage bolt-action rifle, 100 yards, 1 target, 1 shot. She didn't rush, didn't hesitate, just exhaled, and squeezed the trigger of the steel plate. Rang cleanly. The crowd murmured. The announcer called it a bullseye. Blake's jaw tightened station by station. She moved with calm efficiency, the precision of her movements, speaking of thousands of hours in quiet practice, each shot a reflection of Nathan's training, of her resolve, of the life she had lived in. Silence until now by the seventh station. Even the most skeptical observers began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. She wasn't just keeping up, she was setting a pace Blake would need to match under pressure. With cameras rolling by the 10th station, the crowd was silent. The final weapon, a compact handgun, 2 targets, moving lateral at 40 feet. Emma timed it perfectly, 2 clean hits less than a second apart. The crowd erupted again. Not wild cheers, but awed appreciation as she holstered the weapon and stepped back. She didn't look at Blake, just walked past him, her expression unreadable. His turn came, and he started strong, fluid, confident, hitting his marks. But cracks began to show by the 6th station. His transitions lagged half a second longer, his breathing heavier than usual. Jessica stood at the edge, watching with clenched fists by the 8th station. He missed once, not wildly, but enough for the scoreboard to reflect the gap tension. Mounted his 9th was perfect, but rushed a show of control, more for the cameras and the score. And then the 10th station, the moving target, same setup as Emma's. He fired once hit high. The second shot clipped the edge, barely registering. The announcer confirmed it. Partial score. Blake stared at the targets for a long second, then lowered his weapon, his chest rising with labored breath. The results were tallied and posted. Emma Miller by 3-point silence, then applause slowly building, louder, not from his entourage, but from veteran strangers, media. A tide shifting irreversibly. Emma turned to leave, not waiting for a trophy, not needing a handshake. Michael met her halfway, tears in his eyes. She smiled faintly, mission complete. Behind her, Blake remained still, watching his empire of image fracture beneath the weight of truth. Modification to the scoring system. Each station will now be weighted based on difficulty, with the final station counting for 30% of the total score. Emma absorbed this information, recognizing the strategic manipulation. Let me guess. The final station involves a firearm that Blake particularly excels with? Rebecca's hesitation confirmed Emma's suspicion. It's a custom Macmillan TAC-338, a long-range precision rifle that Blake has exclusive experience with. It's one of only 5 in civilian hands in the Northeast. Blake's light crossed her eyes, calculating the implications. She had extensive handgun training from Nathan, but significantly less experience with specialized long-range rifles. After the call, Emma sat at her kitchen table contemplating this development. If Blake was investigating her military connections, it was only a matter of time before he discovered Nathan's identity. The next morning, Emma drove to a specialized range outside the city, where she had arranged private access to practice with long-range rifles. As she pulled into the parking lot, she noticed a black SUV with government plates. Leaning against it was a tall man with the unmistakable bearing of Special Operations personnel. Mrs. Miller, Commander Wilson, former Team 3. I served with Nathan in Baghdad in 16. Emma had met many of Nathan's colleagues over the years, though this man wasn't familiar. Commander, I don't recall Nathan mentioning you. The man's expression remained neutral. We weren't in the same squad, ma'am, but in the teams we all know the Ghost reputation. He gestured toward the range. Heard you might appreciate some pointers on the Macmillan TAC-338. I have some experience with that platform. For the next 4 hours, Commander Wilson guided Emma through the intricacies of the high-precision rifle. Nathan taught you well with handguns, he observed as she completed a series of increasingly accurate shots. You have his patience and breathing control. This isn't so different, just magnified. Trust what you know. By early afternoon, Emma was consistently hitting targets at distances that would have seemed impossible days earlier. As they packed up, Wilson handed her a small notebook, Nathan's distance calculations and wind adjustment formulas. He developed them himself. Might come in handy tomorrow. Emma accepted the notebook with reverence. Thank you, Commander. But why are you helping me? You don't know me. Wilson's expression softened slightly. When you lose a brother in the teams, you look after what mattered to him. Nathan talked about you, how proud he was of your progress, your natural ability, said you had the calmest hands he'd ever seen on a civilian. As Wilson departed, Emma realized that her private challenge had expanded into something larger, a representation of values that extended beyond immediate competition. It had become a symbolic confrontation between different worlds. The privilege that Blake embodied versus the quiet excellence that Nathan had represented. Flamboyant wealth against understated service. In his penthouse that evening, Blake received the final confirmation of Emma's connection to the legendary SEAL sniper. With each new detail, Nathan Miller served his record, his reputation within the Special Forces community, the circumstances of his death during a classified mission. Blake's confidence eroded further. He poured himself another drink, dismissing Jessica's concerned glance. "It doesn't change anything," he insisted. "Experience wins over sentiment every time." Jessica watched him with increasing unease. "Blake, maybe it's time to reconsider. Pay the charity. Cancel the competition. This is becoming complicated." Blake slammed his glass down. "Cancel and confirm every whisper that I'm afraid of her? No. Tomorrow happens exactly as planned." He reached for his phone, dialing a number from memory. "It's Blake. Is everything arranged for tomorrow?" The conversation that followed was brief. After ending the call, he turned to find Jessica watching him with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. "What was that about?" she asked quietly. Blake's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just ensuring a level playing field. My dear, nothing more." The Elite Shooters Club buzzed with unprecedented activity on competition day. The club's board had opened the event to the public, transforming a private duel into a premium press spectacle. Inside, Rebecca Johnson supervised final preparations, noting subtle inconsistencies in equipment at several stations, adjustments positioned to disadvantage anyone unfamiliar with their unique characteristics. Emma arrived dressed simply in jeans and a navy button-down, carrying only a small duffel bag containing Nathan's notebook. Rebecca met her privately, voice lowered. "I've completed the equipment check. There are irregularities, nothing I can officially flag, but enough to advantage someone with intimate knowledge of these specific firearms." Emma nodded. "Thank you for letting me know." Blake arrived, surrounded by sponsors and entourage, dressed in logo-emblazoned gear. Approaching Emma, his smile failed to reach his eyes. "Miss Miller, I trust you slept well." The subtle emphasis on her name implied he had discovered her connection to Nathan. "I should warn you, the pressure can be overwhelming for those unaccustomed to the spotlight. No shame in withdrawing." Emma met his gaze steadily. "I'll manage, Mr. Radcliffe. My husband taught me about performing under pressure." The competition area resembled a stadium, with digital displays showing scores and 3 certified range masters officiating. As Emma prepared to first station, she noticed a group of men with unmistakable military bearings seated in the back row, Michael Reeves among them. His subtle nod bolstered her resolve. Through the first stations, Blake's technique showed years of competition experience, flawless and precise. Emma's approach was different, quieter, more economical, with a stillness between shots that spoke of intensive training. By the fourth station, Blake held a slight lead thanks to his competition experience. At the fifth station, Emma noticed the equipment issue. The trigger pull on the Sig Sauer was subtly heavier than standard. Recalling Nathan's words, "Equipment fails. Conditions change. Adapt and overcome." She adjusted her stance and matched Blake's score despite the handicap. As the competition progressed, a pattern emerged. Blake excelled with competition-style firearms, while Emma demonstrated remarkable consistency across all platforms, particularly military-grade weapons. By the 8th station, Blake's lead had narrowed to a statistically insignificant margin. The audience grew increasingly vocal in support of Emma, captivated by her quiet competence against Blake's showmanship. Before the 9th station, Blake approached Emma. "Impressive performance, Mrs. Miller. Your husband would be proud. The ghost techniques are distinctive. I did my homework." Emma's hand still momentarily at the deliberate use of Nathan's call sign, but her expression remained controlled. "Then you know he valued integrity above all else. Mr. Radcliffe, something to consider as we finish today's competition." When the 9th station concluded, the scores were tied. The competition would be decided entirely by the final, most challenging station, the Macmillan TAC-338 at an exceptional distance. Emma immediately noticed subtle adjustments to the scope and stock. Rather than protesting, she consulted Nathan's notebook, finding his formulas for compensating for equipment variations. Blake completed his sequence first, placing 9 of 10 shots within the innermost rings. His final score set a benchmark, requiring near perfection from Emma to overcome. "Not everyone is built for championship pressure," he remarked loud enough for nearby spectators to hear. Taking position behind the rifle, Emma felt a peculiar calmness descend, the same focused state Nathan had described from his missions. She made adjustments based on his formulas, compensating for the subtle sabotage with techniques born of combat experience. Her first shots hit with perfect precision. By the 6th, all bullseyes. The audience leaned forward in collective anticipation as she prepared her final shot. Suddenly, a sharp reflection of light flashed across her sightline, a momentary distraction from someone near Blake's entourage. Emma paused, then refocused with absolute control. She sent the final round downrange with unwavering precision, a 10th consecutive bullseye that surpassed Blake's performance. The crowd erupted in spontaneous applause, which quickly transformed into a standing ovation. Final results: Emma Miller, 1st place. Blake Radcliffe, 2nd place. Rebecca announced the outcome officially. Blake's sportsmanship mask slipped, revealing raw fury as he offered a pretense handshake. "This isn't over," he whispered. Emma replied calmly, "For today it is, and I believe you owe $50,000 to the Veteran Support Foundation." Blake's facade crumbled completely. "You think this proves anything? That a military widow with beginner's luck can replace years of championship experience? This was nothing but a publicity stunt." His voice carried throughout the now silent room. "The equipment was rigged." "The equipment was indeed rigged, Mr. Radcliffe," Rebecca cut in, holding up her tablet displaying security footage of Blake's technical advisor tampering with the competition firearms. "But not in Ms. Miller's favor. The club security system recorded all access to the equipment room." The revelation sent shockwaves through the audience, transforming admiration for Emma's performance into deeper respect. Excellence achieved despite deliberate sabotage. Blake stood frozen, registering not only the loss of the competition, but the potential destruction of his reputation and career. By Sunday morning, video clips of Emma's perfect final sequence and Blake's meltdown had spread across media platforms, transforming a niche sporting story into a broader narrative about privilege and redemption. Emma woke to dozens of messages from journalists and sponsors, but responded to none, making only a call to Michael Reeves. "It's gotten bigger than I expected. What I do now?" "That depends on what you want," Michael replied. "Privacy or justice?" Emma considered briefly. "Blake hasn't paid the donation, and the equipment tampering was fraud. There should be consequences." At the Radcliffe penthouse, Blake's crisis team strategized damage control. "We issue a statement citing extreme pressure, acknowledge a lapse in judgment, announce a donation to veterans' causes, and check into a wellness center," his publicist suggested. Blake refused. "I'm not apologizing. That woman had military training. That's the real unfair advantage." Their session was interrupted by Boston police officers. "Blake Radcliffe, we need you to answer questions regarding allegations of fraud and criminal tampering. We're investigating violations of Massachusetts gaming laws, since the event involved a substantial wager." Meanwhile, Emma met with the Veteran Support Foundation's director, retired Marine Colonel James Harrison. "Several of our board members are also members of the Elite Shooters Club. They've initiated proceedings to revoke Mr. Radcliffe's championship records." Harrison then presented Emma with an unexpected proposal. "Our foundation has been developing a marksmanship training program for veterans struggling with reintegration. The therapeutic aspects of shooting sports have shown promising results. We would be honored if you consider taking a role in this initiative." 3 days later, Emma reviewed the settlement offer from Blake's legal team, a $100,000 donation to the foundation, double the original amount, a public apology, and a request for a private meeting before any statements were made. That meeting took place in a neutral conference room. Blake entered with his attorney. His usual swagger diminished, designer attire replaced by a conservative business suit. "Mrs. Miller, I want to apologize for my conduct. The truth is, I built my entire identity around being the best. When you threatened that, I reacted poorly, criminally." His rehearsed statement gave way to something more genuine. I've never faced someone who shoots for reasons beyond trophies or recognition. It was unsettling. Emma considered his words. Mr. Radcliffe, I didn't enter that competition seeking to unsettle anyone. I was keeping a promise to my husband. Your actions undermine the integrity of a sport you claim to respect and dishonor the charity you agreed to support. Blake nodded, genuine shame crossing his features. That's why I've increased the donation and accepted the 3-year suspension from competition. The settlement was signed. As they prepared to leave, Blake extended his hand. For what it's worth, you're the finest shooter I've ever competed against. Your husband taught you well. Emma accepted the handshake briefly. He would say I was already a good student. Sometimes a right teacher just helps us discover what's already there. 2 weeks later, Emma stood in the newly established training range of the Veteran Support Foundation's Rehabilitation Center, funded by Blake's donation and contributions from manufacturers. Her first class consisted of 6 veterans carrying visible and invisible wounds from their service. "Good morning," she began, her voice stronger than it had been in years. "My name is Emma Miller. I'm not a soldier or a champion, just someone who learned that sometimes the steadiest hands belong to those who have endured the greatest shaking. Today, we begin with fundamentals: how to stand, how to breathe, how to focus." 6 months later, at the Foundation's fundraiser, Emma addressed the gathering. "1 year ago, I walked into a shooting range for the first time in 3 years, keeping a promise to my late husband. I expected to reconnect with a skill he taught me, then return to my quiet life. Instead, I found myself in a confrontation that led to this program and the community we're building together." When the Foundation announced the annual Nathan Ghost Miller Excellence in Marksmanship Scholarship for veterans pursuing careers in shooting instruction, Emma felt tears form as the first recipient. A former Army Ranger who had overcome significant injuries accepted the honor. Emma twisted her wedding ring one final time. "This one's for you, Nathan, for everything you taught me about standing my ground." Perhaps Emma's greatest victory wasn't defeating a champion who had underestimated her, but finding her way back to the world, rebuilding a life that honored both past and future. For those watching her journey, from being ignored at the Elite Shooters Club to confidently leading the Foundation's programs, the lesson was clear: never underestimate the quiet ones. Behind their silence might lie determination forged through adversity, skills honed through dedication, and values anchored in experiences beyond understanding. And if you find yourself dismissed or overlooked, remember Emma Miller's journey. From invisible to essential, how a woman once ignored at a shooting range transformed a moment of disrespect into a movement of respect, one perfect shot at a time.